What if one simple change in your daily coffee routine could help control your blood sugar naturally? Before you take your next sip, there is something important you need to know that could change your health completely. Not a miracle formula, not a supplement, not something you need to buy. I am talking about coffee, the drink that is already sitting in your kitchen right now, and one specific detail that changes everything about how it affects your blood sugar, the way you drink it, the timing, the order of what comes before it. These details determine whether coffee is quietly protecting you from diabetes or silently making it worse every single morning. Here is what most people never hear from their doctor. A study that analyzed data from more than 1 million people found that regular coffee consumption is associated with a significant reduction in the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. A separate review from one of the most respected medical institutions in the world examined 30 different studies covering nearly 1.2 million participants and confirmed that coffee consumption, both regular and decaffeinated, is associated with approximately a 30% reduction in the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. 30%. From a drink most people already have every day. But here is the part that almost nobody talks about. Those benefits completely disappear and in some cases reverse, depending on when you drink it, what you put in it, and what you eat alongside it. The same cup of coffee that could protect your pancreas in one context can spike your blood sugar by 20 to 40 milligrams per deciliter in another context. Same coffee, same person, completely different outcome. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you the 3 most common coffee mistakes that are silently damaging blood sugar control in people over 60, the exact moments during the day when coffee becomes a powerful metabolic tool, and the simple protocol that has helped patients reduce their fasting glucose and their HbA1c without changing their medication, without going to the gym, and without following a radical diet. Stay until the end because the third coffee moment I will describe, the one that most people completely miss, is backed by research and creates a metabolic window of opportunity that almost no one is taking advantage of. First, let me explain what is happening inside your body when you drink coffee, because understanding this changes everything. Imagine your pancreas as a small factory that produces insulin, the hormone responsible for opening the doors of your cells so that glucose can enter and be converted into energy. When you eat, glucose enters your bloodstream. The factory goes into action, produces insulin, and glucose is absorbed by the cells. Everything works correctly. The problem begins when this factory becomes overloaded. When you eat foods that spike blood sugar quickly and repeatedly, the pancreas has to work at its limit. Over time, your cells become less sensitive to insulin. The pancreas has to produce more and more to achieve the same effect. That is insulin resistance, and it is the gateway to type 2 diabetes. Now here is where coffee becomes extraordinary. Coffee contains hundreds of bioactive compounds, but 2 of them stand out in the scientific literature: chlorogenic acid and trigonelline. Think of them as traffic controllers inside your digestive system. When you drink coffee before eating, these compounds slow down the absorption of sugar from food. Instead of a surge of glucose entering your bloodstream all at once, you get a gradual, controlled flow that your pancreas can manage without stress. A study published in Diabetes Care showed that coffee components, especially chlorogenic acid and trigonelline, significantly reduce glucose and insulin concentrations in the first 15 minutes after consuming carbohydrates. This effect is real, measurable, and completely free. But it only works if you are not making the mistakes that cancel it out entirely. And before I walk you through those mistakes, if this is the kind of information you wish someone had told you years ago, take 2 seconds right now to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps this content reach more people who genuinely need it. And I have much more coming on natural strategies for blood sugar, energy, and healthy aging. Do not miss what comes next. Now let us get into the 3 mistakes. Mistake number 1. Drinking coffee on an empty stomach immediately after waking up. This is the most common mistake and the one that causes the most harm. When you wake up after a full night of fasting, your body already has elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone your adrenal glands produce to prepare you for the demands of the day. Part of its function is to signal your liver to release glucose into the bloodstream so you have energy to get started. This is a completely normal survival mechanism. The problem is that caffeine amplifies this effect. It further stimulates the adrenal glands, triggers the release of more adrenaline, and the liver responds by releasing even more glucose into the blood. And you have not eaten a single bite of food yet. You have not consumed any carbohydrates. Your blood sugar is rising from nothing but a cup of coffee. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition confirmed this effect directly. Drinking black coffee on an empty stomach after a night of sleep can significantly increase blood glucose levels in the morning. Patients who use continuous glucose monitors have seen this in real time. The glucose line climbs steadily after that first empty stomach coffee. No food involved, just the cortisol and caffeine combination working against them. Mistake number 2, coffee with sugar, sweetener, or flavored creamer. A single spoonful of sugar in your coffee causes an immediate spike in blood glucose and cancels out the protective effects of the chlorogenic acid you just consumed. It is like pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time. The beneficial compound is trying to slow glucose absorption, and the sugar is creating an instant flood. And artificial sweeteners are not the safe alternative most people assume. Research published in a peer-reviewed nutrition journal suggests that artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose can alter the gut microbiota, the ecosystem of bacteria in your intestines that plays a central role in glucose metabolism. The disruption happens gradually and silently, but its effects on long-term blood sugar control are increasingly documented. A significant piece of research published in early 2025 by researchers analyzing 3 large American cohorts found this clearly. Coffee without any additives was associated with a 10% reduction in diabetes risk for each additional cup per day. When coffee was consumed with sugar, that protective effect decreased significantly. The mechanism of protection depends entirely on keeping the coffee clean. Mistake number 3. Drinking coffee in the late afternoon or at night. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours in the body. If you drink coffee at 3 in the afternoon, half of that caffeine is still circulating at 8 in the evening. It keeps cortisol levels elevated into the night, interferes with deep sleep, and it is during quality sleep that the body regulates a significant portion of its glucose metabolism. Poor sleep directly impairs insulin sensitivity the following day. One bad night of sleep can raise fasting glucose by 10 to 20 points in people who already have metabolic issues. This creates a cycle that is very difficult to break. The coffee disrupts the sleep. The disrupted sleep raises glucose. The higher glucose creates fatigue the next day. The fatigue drives more coffee consumption, and the cycle repeats. Now let me show you how to break that cycle entirely with the right coffee at the right time. There are 3 specific windows during the day when coffee becomes a genuine metabolic tool instead of a liability. Most people use none of them correctly. The first golden window: 30 to 60 minutes after waking up, after water and protein, not before. When you wake up, the first thing you should do is drink a full glass of water, then wait between 30 and 60 minutes. During that time, eat something that contains protein. Scrambled eggs, a boiled egg, a piece of natural cheese, plain, unsweetened yogurt, any quality source of protein. Only after that should you drink your coffee, and it should be plain. No sugar, no sweetener, nothing added. Here is why this order matters so precisely. Protein buffers the cortisol response to caffeine. It provides amino acids that the liver uses more efficiently, and it prevents the spike in cortisol that would otherwise trigger unnecessary glucose release from the liver. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology showed that consuming protein before caffeine reduces the post-meal glucose spike and stabilizes the hormonal response to coffee. If you want to enhance this effect even further, add half a teaspoon of cinnamon powder directly to your coffee. Cinnamon contains active compounds that partially mimic the action of insulin, helping cells absorb glucose more efficiently. A review published in the journal Nutrients showed that regular cinnamon consumption contributes to a modest but consistent reduction in fasting glucose levels. It is not a medication, but it is a genuine ally and costs almost nothing. The second golden window, 20 to 30 minutes before your main meal. This is a strategy that very few people know about, but the research supports it clearly. About 20 to 30 minutes before your largest meal of the day, drink a small cup of plain black coffee without sugar. The chlorogenic acid will act as that traffic controller, slowing down the absorption of sugar from the foods you are about to eat. This directly reduces the post-meal glucose spike, which is one of the most significant drivers of insulin resistance and eventual type 2 diabetes progression. The study published in Diabetes Care that I mentioned earlier measured this effect precisely. Coffee components significantly reduced glucose and insulin concentrations in the first 15 minutes after carbohydrate consumption. The researchers were not talking about a minor statistical adjustment. They were measuring a real, clinically meaningful reduction in the glucose surge that follows eating. You can use this mechanism every single day at no cost. The third golden window, within 30 minutes after physical activity. This is the one most people miss entirely. If you walk, do light exercise, or any form of physical activity, pay close attention to this. Within 30 minutes of finishing your walk or workout, drink a cup of plain coffee. When your muscles have just been active, they become dramatically more receptive to glucose. They act like a sponge, pulling sugar out of the blood to use as fuel for recovery. Caffeine at this specific moment enhances this effect even further, helping muscles absorb glucose more efficiently and reducing the amount that remains circulating in the bloodstream. This is called a metabolic window of opportunity. The muscle tissue is primed to clear glucose without requiring large amounts of insulin. Caffeine extends and amplifies that window. Most people either skip coffee entirely after exercise or drink it hours later when the window has closed. Timing it correctly costs nothing and takes no additional effort. Now let me tell you about the invisible enemies of coffee that sabotage everything, because even with perfect timing, certain combinations will cancel every benefit. Enemy number one is sugar of any kind: refined, brown, raw, honey, agave. Anything sweet added to coffee creates an immediate glucose spike that neutralizes the protective action of chlorogenic acid. The 2025 Harvard research was unambiguous on this point. Coffee with sugar has reduced protective action against diabetes. It is not a small reduction. The benefit drops significantly with each sweetened cup. Enemy number two is artificial sweeteners. As the research increasingly shows, aspartame and sucralose disrupt the balance of gut bacteria essential for healthy glucose metabolism. If you need something to ease the bitterness of coffee, pure natural stevia is currently the best available option based on existing research, as it has not demonstrated the same negative effects on gut microbiota in studies conducted so far. Enemy number three is industrialized instant coffee, particularly the kind that comes in pre-sweetened sachets or flavored packets. These products frequently contain hidden sugar, partially hydrogenated fats, and additives that compromise the nutritional integrity of the coffee entirely. What you want is natural ground coffee, ideally 100% Arabica, freshly brewed, without anything added. Enemy number four is pairing coffee with ultra-processed foods: white bread, filled cookies, industrial cakes, sweetened cereals. When you combine coffee with these foods, the glucose spike from the refined carbohydrates is so extreme that no amount of chlorogenic acid in the coffee can compensate. You are asking one beneficial compound to fight against an overwhelming flood of fast-digesting sugar. It cannot win that battle. The combination defeats the entire purpose. Now let me address quantity, because the question of how much coffee is optimal comes up constantly. Based on the available research, consuming up to 4 or 5 small cups of plain coffee per day falls within the range of protective benefits against diabetes for most healthy adults. The review from the Karolinska Institute that analyzed 30 studies found that this range was where the protective association was strongest. However, every individual metabolizes caffeine differently, and this is largely determined by genetics. If you experience heart palpitations, anxiety, tremors, or sleep disruption from coffee, your caffeine metabolism is likely slower than average. In that case, reduce your intake to 2 cups per day, or consider switching to a high-quality decaffeinated option. Decaffeinated coffee retains chlorogenic acid and preserves many of the glucose-related benefits because the protective compounds are not dependent on caffeine. The caffeine is a tool for the post-exercise window, but the metabolic benefits before meals come primarily from the other compounds that survive the decaffeination process. Now let me bring everything together into what I call the protection triad, because coffee works dramatically better when it operates within a broader context of 3 synergistic habits. The first element is smart coffee, the way I have described throughout this video. Plain, timed correctly, before meals when possible, after exercise when applicable, with protein before the first cup of the day, with cinnamon if you want an additional layer of benefit. This maximizes the action of chlorogenic acid and trigonelline while avoiding the cortisol amplification that happens with empty stomach morning coffee. The second element is movement. You do not need a gym membership. You do not need special equipment. 30 minutes of moderate-paced walking 3 to 5 times per week is enough to dramatically improve insulin sensitivity. Moving muscles act as metabolic drains, pulling glucose out of the bloodstream independently of insulin. This mechanism has been confirmed across so many studies it would be impossible to list them all here. The key insight is that muscle tissue is the body's largest consumer of glucose, and active muscle consumes it without requiring the insulin that resistant cells struggle to respond to. Walking is not a minor lifestyle suggestion. It is one of the most powerful metabolic interventions available to a person over 60. The third element is adequate protein at every main meal. Protein is the macronutrient that has the least impact on blood glucose, promotes satiety, and protects muscle mass. After the age of 60, protein needs actually increase because the body becomes progressively less efficient at utilizing dietary protein. Muscle loss accelerates, metabolism slows, and without sufficient protein, the body's capacity to consume and regulate glucose diminishes. Include a quality source of protein at each main meal. Eggs, chicken, fish, beans, natural cheese, plain yogurt. These are not exotic or expensive ingredients. They are accessible and enormously effective. When these 3 elements work together, the effects are multiplied. Coffee improves insulin sensitivity through its bioactive compounds. Exercise increases glucose uptake directly through muscle contraction. Protein stabilizes the glucose spikes that follow eating. None of these requires a prescription. None of them requires a specialist. They require only understanding and consistency. One important clarification before I close. Everything described in this video represents complementary lifestyle strategies supported by solid scientific evidence. They can produce meaningful, measurable improvements in blood sugar control, and the clinical examples I have described are representative of what these changes can achieve, but they do not replace medical evaluation or prescribed treatment. If you have diagnosed diabetes and take medication, never adjust your dosage or discontinue treatment without consulting your physician directly. The right approach is to bring this information to your doctor, discuss it together, and make any adjustments under professional guidance. These strategies support your treatment. They do not replace it. Now here is something worth pausing on. The research on coffee and blood sugar has been available for years. The data from over 1 million participants showing a significant reduction in diabetes risk. The studies showing chlorogenic acid slowing glucose absorption. The evidence on cortisol amplification from empty stomach coffee. The 2025 data showing that sugar in coffee cancels the protective effect. All of this exists. All of it is published. And yet the vast majority of people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes have never been told any of it during a standard medical appointment. This is not anyone's fault. A routine consultation rarely allows enough time for the kind of detailed, practical discussion that could actually change daily habits. That gap between what the research shows and what reaches people in their everyday lives is exactly why content like this matters. Information based on evidence, explained clearly, and connected directly to the daily choices people are already making, is one of the most useful things that can be shared. Your body is not working against you. When glucose rises, when fatigue sets in after lunch, when thirst does not go away, these are signals. They are the body communicating that something needs adjustment. And very often, what needs adjusting is not a medication dosage, but a habit. The time of a cup of coffee, what comes before it, what gets added to it. These are small choices that accumulate into significant outcomes over weeks and months. Health is not built in a doctor's office. It is built in the daily decisions that happen before and after that appointment. And sometimes the most powerful change starts with something already in your kitchen. If this video gave you clarity on something that was quietly working against you, share it with someone you care about who is managing blood sugar or has been told they are pre-diabetic. The information is free. The change it can create is real, and giving someone accurate, practical knowledge about their health is one of the most meaningful things you can do for them. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because the next video covers the 5 foods that people with prediabetes need to remove from their diet as soon as possible. These are foods that silently raise inflammation and glucose levels, and most people consume them daily without realizing the damage being done. You will not want to miss it. Take good care of yourself. Your health is built one small choice at a time. Make them count.